Education has posted notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, location, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted to the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns the evening. May I have roll call?
Dr. Beatty,
Here.
Ms. Aldon,
Here.
Dr.
Got to
Coleman,
play around with
Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Cruz,
Right.
here, Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Daniel, here, Ms. Vardaman, here, Ms. Voorhees.
Here. We will now recess to executive session. Be it resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act NJSA 10:4-12 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss personnel matter. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10:4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. And to receive attorney funds. I move that we recess to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Maybe just to turn my battery, but I'll walk back in. I think about it, and I'm like.
Yeah, here.
Coleman,
Here.
Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Cruz,
Here.
Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Vardaman,
Here.
Ms. Voorhees.
Here. Let's stand for our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we proceed with the rest of our agenda, I'd like to take a minute to address the events during this February 26th meeting. Disrespectful, abusive, bullying, and intimidating behavior has no place anywhere in our community, and certainly not in anything associated with our schools. This board, Dr. Suska, and the district do not condone this behavior from anyone. The board is committed to the values in this district's mission statement: respect for diversity, commitment to collaboration, continuous improvement, and achievement of excellence. We regret that members of our community were disrespected, and I apologize for not being more effective in facilitating a respectful and safe space for everyone. I will do better. We are a community, and our words and actions, both in person and online, have impact on the well-being of our community. These actions and words also impact the perception of our community. Our district staff are dedicated and talented public servants. Our board members are passionate volunteers. Our parents, families, and students are the heart of our district. We all have our students' best interests at heart. It's important to remember that fact when we share different perspectives, experiences, and ideas. We can be compassionate and demand results. We can ask difficult questions and respect another person's perspective. We can be empathetic and hold each other accountable. We are all here for the same purpose, and we need to come together to ensure that what we do here is about creating the best possible school experience for all students. We can only do that effectively if we preserve the integrity of our meetings, our work, and our relationships. We must all commit ourselves not to just being kind and respectful for one another, but also encouraging others to be the same way, whether online or in person. We need to do better. I moved to Highland Park because it was unique. I know a lot of us probably have that in common. We love our town and our schools. But the thing that sets Highland Park apart is probably our collective desire to affect change and grow our town and district. We have a lot of passionate individuals who are committed to this mission, but change and growth are only possible if we maintain trusting relationships with each other and if we ground our work in facts. This board is committed to continuing our collaborative work with district leadership, staff, students, and families to achieve those goals. Dr. Suska, if there's anything you'd like to say.
Having it all would be helpful. Yes, thank you. I wish to echo Ms. Casal Dunn's sentiments on our collective commitment to fostering a safe and respectful environment for all members of our community. It's imperative that we uphold values and integrity, compassion, and understanding in our interactions with one another. I want to emphasize that I unequivocally condemn any form of harassment or inappropriate behavior within our school community. Such actions not only undermine our shared goals, but also detract from the positive learning environment we strive to create for our students. As we continue the important work of nurturing the academic, social, and emotional development of our students, it's essential that we come together as a unified force. While we might not always see eye to eye on every decision, it is my responsibility as the superintendent to prioritize the well-being and success of our students. I firmly believe that by fostering open dialogue, mutual respect, and a commitment to our shared mission, we can overcome challenges and achieve great things for our students. Your support and collaboration are invaluable as we continue to strive for excellence in education. Thank you for your dedication to our school community and our students.
Okay, moving on in the agenda, we have communications. There were 28 total. 1 on the calendar, 2 on pre-K screen time, 1 on the Irving sign, 2 on the February 26th meeting, 1 about barriers at Irving pickup, 1 about Dr. Suska's commitment to mental health, and the rest were about Bartle start time. I move for the approval of minutes. We will be approving the hybrid workshop voting meeting and executive session from February. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, I forgot we're in a workshop. So next on the agenda, next time, will be the approval of minutes. And now our student representatives.
Hi, everybody. So over at Irving, Irving participated in the Read Across America last week, and the students had a blast celebrating the love of reading. They would like to thank the families who joined them for Flashlight Friday and all the community members for coming in to read to the students. They also want to thank the PTO for supplying them with new planters for out front of the school. The students and staff are excited to get started planting. Next, Irving's Spring Fling Dance will be on March 21st, and they encourage families to sign their children up. And finally, the kindergarten math night will be held this week on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Over at Bartle also participated in Read Across America Week and enjoyed it thoroughly. They say a massive thank you to all the staff and community members for coming out to read to both classes. Bartle is looking forward to the Highland Park High School's Drama Club Footloose teaser for Bartle students on March 14th. It's become a tradition for each new production the club puts on, and the students love it. Also important to note is that Bartle's talent show will be held later that same day on March 14th at 7 p.m. There will also be a math parent workshop at 5:30 p.m. on March 20th. And finally, Bingo for Books will be held at 5:30 on March 27th at Bartle. For the middle school, Student Congress is running a volleyball tournament on March 26th, right after school in the gym. Students can sign up on their own with a partner or as a team of no more than 10 people by March 20th. There's no cost to sign up, and the winning team members receive gift certificates for money towards the school store as a prize. Plus, they get to face off against the stacked teacher team. Up next, the middle school is hosting a movie night on March 20th from 6 to 8 p.m., showing The Atom Project. They will be providing popcorn, soda, treats. They'll have games and more. The sign-up form can be found on the Highland Park Middle School's Happenings Google Classroom. And lastly, from the middle school, the spring conferences are beginning tomorrow, March 12th, and the Genesis portal was open a few days ago on Friday for all the parents and guardians to sign up. The main office asks parents who want to talk to their child's teachers to please refer back to the letter Ms. Brady sent last week for directions. And over at the high school, the Red Cross Club will be holding their spring blood drive on March 22nd in the high school gym from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and they're requesting volunteers. The Drama Club's performance of Footloose will be this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, March 15th, 16th, and 17th in the high school auditorium. The Friday and Saturday performances are at 7 p.m. and the Sunday show will be at 2. The students have been working hard on the show for the past 8 weeks and are extremely excited to share it with an audience. Tickets can be bought at hpdrama.net or at the door on the show day. NHS held their Jeopardy event on February 27th in support of the Highland Park Volunteer Fire Department, and Seth Shapiro, a junior, was the champion. Congratulations to him. On March 3rd, the robotics team completed in the first Tech Challenge, FTC, a regional tournament, and the team was chosen to compete with the winning alliance for that day. They then moved on to the semifinals and the finals, where they actually won. The Highland Park Owls will be going to states, which is a massive first for their team, and they also won second place for the Motivate Award at the regional competition, because they share their knowledge of robotics with the community and the opportunity that they get. The state's competition will be held on March 17th at Harrisburg High School, and the team, which is coached by Miss Keisha Steppen, the robotics club advisor, has been spending every day after school for the past 2 weeks, including Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., working to prepare the students for this amazing accomplishment. Massive props to Miss Steppen and the entire robotics team. The Highland Park DECA chapter was able to attend the State Career Development Conference in Atlantic City from March 3rd through the 6th. This year, 4,600 high school students came from all over the state to compete against one another in different business-related events. Highland Park's chapter sent 50 students to the state conference, has earned the spot to be able to send 12 students to the international conference in Anaheim, California in April. 6 students qualified on their manual projects, which included topics such as supporting the Make-A-Wish Foundation and teaching students in the GLOW program financial literacy topics, whereas the other 6 students will participate in leadership workshops. Congratulations, HP DECA. Juniors should mark their calendars on Wednesday, March 27th. The high school counselors will be traveling to Woodbridge High School for a college fair. There will be over 50 college admissions representatives from the schools across the country in attendance, and for students to be able to meet them and get valuable information from. In order to go to the college fair, a permission slip must be signed and returned to Miss O'Sullivan in the guidance office. Permission slips are available as well in the guidance office. And lastly, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Miss Collinson, who is our Center Hall attendant, who has set up a nice display of influential women such as Kamala Harris, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, and more, to honor them during Women's History Month. Additionally, she has decorated the desk all fun and green for St. Patrick's Day. Thank you to Ms. Collinson for brightening up the students' days, and I encourage everyone to go check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew?
A comment. Thank you so much for taking on so many updates for us. I feel like we need a copy of these notes just because there are just shared so much information so many dates that I'm trying to jot everything down. If you don't mind sharing with us,
Sure.
I would appreciate it.
I can send it to you, Dr. Sousa. Oh, perfect.
Oh, they are?
They're in the drive.
Oh, I didn't see them in the drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson, for putting in the drive.
Thank you. So excited to hear. I always love this time of the school year, of course, because spring activities start to come up and these competitions and events, and it's just wonderful to hear. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll move on to superintendent's report. There is no report this evening. On to curriculum, board committee reports and recommendations. So I'll start. Curriculum instruction hasn't met yet. We meet Thursday. On the agenda for approval later this month are field trips. There are field trips that the high school musical students will do at Bartle. They perform a teaser of the musical. There's also some high school students going to see a Spanish play in New York City, Hershey Park for a music in the Parks Festival, and New Brunswick for a Model UN competition. Bartle field trips include Camp Bernie for 5th graders, Liberty Science Center for 2nd graders, Liberty Hall at Keene University for 4th graders to learn about NJ's role in the American Revolution. Second on the agenda for approval would be the position JD 2850 for a district registrar. I'm not sure if we have the budget for this yet, but this would be one position to oversee all of registration. And then number 3 is a resolution to approve the board calendar changing. The May 13th, 2024 meeting will go from a workshop meeting to a voting meeting as per the attached schedule. And that concludes curriculum instruction. Equity and excellence.
Yes, Equity and Excellence met this past Thursday, March 7th. And we had 2 guests, our high school vice principal Jason Richardson and Ms. Tara Young, who is the district lead counselor. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just- Okay. Equity and Excellence met this past Thursday, March 7th, and we had 2 guest speakers, guests, I should say, Jason Richardson, our high school vice principal, and Ms. Tara Young, our district lead counselor. First item on our agenda was not really item for discussion, but just information sharing for our new committee members, and that was the listing of kind of the roles and responsibilities of the Equity and Excellence Committee. And those are when this committee was initially formed in 2017, there was a lot of discussion around addressing discipline inequity. Of course, we're still having, that's an ongoing topic and discussion for Equity and Excellence. And at that time, the decision was made to really look into bringing restorative justice to schools. The committee was also formed thinking about ensuring equity and access to school programs and services, establishing protocols for building equity into opportunities, including outside of academic programs, providing equity oversight to other board committees, such as policy, curriculum, and finance and personnel, oversight and ensuring implementation of the strategic plan, and also serving an advisory role to the superintendent and students. When I joined the board, the Equity and Excellence Committee meeting was meeting, I think, every 2 to 3 months. And we have now really clearly increased our meeting frequency. And I think the range of topics that we've been able to cover kind of under this umbrella of kind of founding roles and responsibilities. So we welcome our new committee members, and we had our first meeting with a full new committee, very vigorous discussion as always. So let me get into those notes. Our first item of discussion was the comprehensive equity plan. And again, this is something that we felt important for our new committee members to know about. And Equity and Excellence has a role in reviewing the school district's comprehensive equity plan, which is a 3-year plan required by the state for all school districts to submit to the County Office of Education. And the purpose of the CEP is to identify and, if necessary, correct policies, programs, activities, practices, and conditions that may be inequitable in the district. And we also, as a district, have to complete a self-assessment to identify areas in need of improvement and develop a 3-year plan to address them. So the district's affirmative action team is responsible for composing the comprehensive equity plan. Dr. Suska shared last year's report with the committee. This year's report is in the process of being developed. In addition to the actual comprehensive plan, there's a needs assessment that looks at the processes that need to be updated and areas of need, as per the title. The CEP shows the district's compliance or lack thereof, depending on year to year where we are in that, and identifying and addressing all forms of prejudice and discrimination in the district. And we share that document with the entire committee. The board has access to that as well, and you will see how many policies and practices and programs are included under that equity plan review. Historically, our CEP has had to address disproportionality by race and gender in suspensions, as well as underrepresentation of students from historically underrepresented groups in accelerated and advanced academic classes. So those are areas that we have had to address and will continue to address as a district. Once this year's report is updated, Dr. Sisko will share it with the committee for review, as always, prior to board approval. So we look forward to it. Then we went on to talk about the Central Jersey Consortium activity. There again, this is another sort of ongoing topic of discussion. We are a member of the Central Jersey Equity Consortium, Equity and Excellence Consortium, that is under the New Jersey School Boards Association. We have had a conversation a couple months ago about whether or not the district should continue being a member of this consortium, or did the administration feel like they were benefiting from membership. Dr. Suska did say that she, had some concerns about just the lack of feeling that many of the programs and activities that they were attending, most of which were remote, were not very helpful to the staff. So her recommendation is that we do not continue with membership in the consortium. However, this year we looked at an upcoming student conference that the consortium is with. And it's open to students from member districts. So we really thought it would be nice to have students attend the conference that they could be focused on hopefully responsive practices. Available to send students to this conference, and then we'll look to recoup. But beyond this year, I think we all were fine with Dr. Suss's recommendation that not getting what we need from this particular resource. We could certainly continue to the evidence that we're having that, Dr. Sussman specifically pointed out the coaching models that the house and other done.
disadvantaged students. And this is specifically in math based on the NJSLA scores. So teachers and counselors, really are taking that data into consideration and understanding that it is clearly going to be difficult for students who are starting already at a disadvantage when they're in the earlier grades to pick up higher level math at high school. So what some of the data points that Ms. Young was able to share with us this time around is that, and this is linking to that Bartle data, at least she kind of sees that as a link. There were at the high school 20 Black students taking any type of AP or honors course, and only 3 of those students were enrolled in advanced math. There were 39 Hispanic or Latino students taking any type of AP or honors course, and only 1 in advanced math. And there were 53 economically disadvantaged students, 26 of which were enrolled in advanced math. So this particular data, again, it was just something that Ms. Young shared with us. Because of the connection that they saw between what's happening with the test data at the earlier schools, and perhaps again how that makes it more difficult for students to be successful at the high school. Anecdotal data from counselors' conversations with some of students from these underrepresented groups who are not or chose not to enroll in honors or AP courses indicated other factors as well, such as, family dynamics, the need to work after school or take care of a sibling after school. These were individual stories, of course, that can skew the data. But Ms. Young, again, just wanted to acknowledge that this is, for every student, very different situation, and there are other factors that are at play as well. Ms. Young acknowledged that the counselors and teachers who are doing this work are certainly not looking to push students if they are not ready to take higher courses. This is a conversation that I think all the committee members agree we don't want to see happening. The committee is, they are looking at enhancing differentiated instruction, addressing the needs of diverse learning, diverse learners, as well as looking for more opportunities for project-based learning. An example of this is that they found that was very popular among the students is Camp Invention. And that is a project-based mixed ability group, which has been, as I said, wildly popular among students. So they're really looking to kind of think about ways to expand that sort of model with students. Let's see, we also agree that it's important for students to feel supported and prepared if they're taking AP or honors for the first time so they can achieve individual success, while also acknowledging that we understand that there's a perception that because the barrier of a teacher recommendation was removed, that the that the actual rigor of the courses are degraded in some way. And we had a conversation about the research not really showing that. However, in some cases, we do know that individual teachers may adjust instruction that is not practice or protocol that should be followed. So I think that is another area that the committee will have to look at as well, especially as they're thinking about differentiation. Another point that I think was important to highlight is that we talked about the factor of the detracking in the 6th grade that involved pushing into 4th and 5th grade at Bartle. That work started prior to COVID and was interrupted due to COVID. So there was this lack of consistency in holding those practices in place. So detracking in terms of making sure that all students receive the same quality and level of challenge at that earlier level. So the degree to which detracking work was not really embedded, or we don't know exactly the extent to which that was fully embedded at Bartle. And I think that's, again, going to be something else to look at as the committee does their work at looking at the lower level schools, elementary schools, I should say. We also discussed the role of the advanced learning program and the role that that can play in ensuring that all students at our earlier grades are receiving enrichment. We are going to have to come back to that conversation because, of course, it was a full 1-hour meeting. We will be having more conversation about that, but I just want to put that out there that we will be talking more about that and how I think there's a lot that still needs to be understood about the ALP program, and that it is actually a school-wide program. There is a component of it that does require pull-out or does involve pull-out instruction that is based on test scores. But I think, again, just an understanding of the enrichment model as a whole and how the program works and why it's in place is going to be an important follow-up conversation, as well as demographics, looking at from an equity perspective what that looks like. Okay, so let me see. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up so much time here. Let me just get to the policies. This will be quick. We have 3 policies that only need to be updated for nothing substantive, just some primary language changes to ensure that the code does not need to be updated every time a new protected class of students is created. So for example, those policies are, and I know this is going to sound 5841 secret societies policy.
No.
It is, yes. We don't have secret societies, and obviously we do not advocate for that, but there is a policy on that. We're also looking at our equity access of student organizations and just some language changes to ensure that all protected categories of students are covered under that policy. And then there is the notification of, notification of juvenile offender case disposition. So very judicial like, and we'll be looking at that policy as well before our first review. I think that's it. Let me just double check here. Okay, I don't want anyone calling me out if I missed something. That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Monique. Any questions for Monique?
Can I make a comment or two?
Comments.
Is that okay? Okay. Ms. Coleman, this was very, very thorough notes. So the last thing anyone wants me to do is to add to them, but I'll keep it really, really quick. Just because it was such a productive meeting and we did talk about so many things. A few things. So first of all, we did talk about the external evaluator who would be assessing the RISE program. And we also discussed that because of the importance of this project, that the Equity Excellence Committee would have insight into the objectives and the methodology of the evaluator. Make sure that evaluator is taking into account everything that we think is important to evaluate in that program. So we're going to have the chance to review that and hopefully offer some feedback, and that'll be really helpful. Let's see here. One question I would be interested if teachers, if the Advanced Placement Committee, I don't have the title quite right, could address is whether this committee could address whether it would be helpful to have teacher recommendations or prerequisites reintroduced. If that could be a subject for that committee to discuss. I don't know if that was on the agenda for them, but that might be useful. One thing which I think is a correction, which is that the ALP program in the at Bartle, I believe that test scores are a component in deciding which students participate in that program. But I think a range of factors are taken into account by the staff member who sort of decides who's part of it.
Well, let me just, and again, Dr. Zessica, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the advanced learning program is a school-wide program in and of itself. So we have the larger program, that's the advanced learning program, that's a school-wide enrichment enrichment program for every student. However, at the 4th and 5th grade levels is where we have the special topics pull-out component of the program, and that's where the testing comes in. So that's the distinction I made in my comment about or just very brief comment on that particular program. And I think that gets lost, I think, in the conversation we have about ALP, and that it is supposed to be. And again, we don't know exactly how this is carried out. And I think that's going to be an important thing for us to continue to talk about and to get some reporting on. How is this school-wide enrichment really working? What does it look like? And how are students benefiting from this particular aspect of the program? So, yeah.
I believe, just to clarify, I believe it's not standardized test scores. There's 3 layers of testing, but I don't think it's standardized test scores.
No,
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
And
And
that was,
one last thing, I noted that that the students interested in advanced placement or perhaps interested in advanced placement had these discussions with their counselors. And I guess I was a little surprised to hear that the counselors are evaluating not just student interest and sort of general, capacity, but also concrete skills. It almost sounds to me like the counselors are playing the roles of what teachers would do when they looked at the students, accomplishments and their testing and their grades and things. And I wonder if we're asking counselors to do something now, which we're not allowing teachers to do, which is to offer a recommendation as to which students are prepared for advanced placement. That struck me as a little bit intriguing.
I can speak a little to this because we just went to high school orientation. And we were kind of given an idea of what the process is like for course selection. They actually gave us a a screener that we could do with our child, kind of talking about the different habits or really work habits and interests. And it was kind of like a check off, you know, like, oh, I do this always, sometimes never. And then some questions on the back, and the parent is supposed to sign it and have the child bring back in that paper when they meet with their counselor for course selection. It also was encouraged to have conversations with teachers. So I know I sent my son back with questions for his math teacher and Spanish teacher, and both of them were very eager to give him feedback on how, you know, where they felt would be an appropriate placement. So the conversations are happening. I think it's just a matter of, it's not something that is a checked box on an application.
Thanks.
And we will be having further and deeper conversations about that work that's being done. Again, this is ongoing, and we typically do have updates, but this particular meeting, we were hoping to get a little bit more data, which of course was short notice, so we didn't get that, but we will certainly dig deeper. And I do just want to stress, I hear kind of your question about, well, should the committee be thinking about reinstating that particular requirement? I think first we need to be thinking about what is the data telling us in terms of whether or not, and the extent to which this work is reaching the goal. The intended goal is to reduce disproportionality, provide increased access. And that does not mean that we are not cognizant of the fact that that means that in some instances, some students will be challenged with making that stretch. But it's like, how do we make this program more supportive, giving it the resources it needs so that students can be successful who do, you know, decide to take that challenge. But I think we all recognize that we don't want students to be in a situation where they are finding the gaps so wide that they are unsuccessful, feeling discouraged, and even less interested in wanting to challenge themselves, either in that particular course or subsequent courses. So I think there's a lot more data to sort of unpack and look at. I want to hear personally about the success stories of students who actually did do well when they took that challenge. How did that happen? And what factors were played into that? And it is going to be individual for every student. But there's a lot more information we need to look at.
And the other thing I would just say to that is the end of the year as well, when we actually, you know, they go through for AP specifically, we'll be able to see, you know, that and how it compares to previous years. So, you know, that's obviously, I think, something that we would look into.
I'm glad you raised that because
Yeah.
and I'm
We didn't
sorry,
talk
we're
about
not going to belabor
yeah.
this, but we do have an ongoing spreadsheet with
Yeah.
the yearly data on, we just didn't have that updated.
So I would actually have a question in regards to Bartle versus the AP courses. For ALP at Bartle, it's not standardized test, but it's 3 days straight of rigorous testing.
Mhm.
And they also do need to have recommendations from teachers and parents as well. Is the data that you're going to be collecting, or that I don't know if it's central leadership team or whoever is collecting, going to also include whether or not that affects Bartle students, and whether or not those Bartle students who go on are actually going to be affected in the future, or have that ability to take AP, or the kids who didn't get into ALP, are they able to take ALP? So there can be a comparison.
Those are questions that I think we should definitely ask. I will say that the ALP, that component of the ALP program, if I am correct, is to meet the state requirements that we have some sort of gifted and talented program. When the ALP program was devised, it was intentionally devised in a way, because this is Highland Park, that we didn't want to create more disparities in terms of access to advanced work for our students along racial and economic lines. We didn't want to exacerbate that by bringing in a program that would start that at such a young level. And so the intent was to develop a program where enrichment would be for every child. Every child would get an enriching course work during those early grades, and specifically at Bartle. But again, the testing, the pull-out component, to my knowledge, was to meet the state's requirement. So that's very different from offering honors and AP courses that don't have that same sort of state regulation in place. But I do think it would be interesting to look at the data in terms of how kids who do have access to that particular part of ALP then go on in terms of taking more advanced level classes.
And I would say, Nikki, we did have, it doesn't quite capture it, but we had a really robust conversation about the need to pull forward enrichment. And when you're broadening a pipeline, you've got to do it earlier on. And we did discuss that the testing could be a barrier. And so, that certainly came up but there's no doubt that you need to offer enrichment earlier if you're expecting to prepare people to be ready that was a really great conversation we had. Tara was really actively involved in that as well. And I think we were all very aligned on that. Okay, finance and facilities.
Mine will be much shorter, but thank you, Monique. That was really helpful, interesting. Finance and facilities has not met. We meet on tomorrow. So next time this board meets, there'll be a longer meeting, minutes from me. For the agenda that I suspect will also get longer before our next meeting, we have the resolution to approve travel and related expense reimbursements. We have 2 contractors on here for professional services. One is to service our AED, to maintain our AED components that we have in the district. And another one, the social work, PRN of New Jersey, for group therapy, crisis intervention, and assessments. There will be a resolution to approve contracts to provide professional development in this current school year from Inspired Instruction for our April Professional Development Day. And that professional development is in New Jersey Student Learning Standards in Math, integrating the standards into daily instruction and creating assessments in math that align with those standards. We have a resolution to approve bedside instruction for 1 additional student at Rutgers Behavioral Health Care. Resolution to approve, it's one of these non-public pass-through things that we do, that we're required to do, non-public school security purchase in Highland Park Children's House Montessori for 2 Ring video doorbells. Resolution to approve the agreement between the Borough of Highland Park and the Highland Park Board of Education to share revenue collected from 31 River Road, the urban renewal. That's the pilot project that we've talked about in the past here at board meetings, and that agreement we will be voting on to accept at our next meeting. And the last piece on finance facilities is we will be voting on a 2024-25 preschool program plan budget that has to be submitted to the state. And that will focus on our increase from 60 students to 90 students next year in our preschool program. That's going to be part of that budget. And that's probably the shortest agenda finance facilities has had yet. So any questions on that? Yeah, do you want to bring that one up? Yeah. Yeah.
They ask, if we could clarify, number 5, the resolution to approve the non-public school security purchase.
Denise, yeah, can you
Yeah.
explain
Yeah,
again
we need
the
to
pass through?
clarify
Every
something
time this
that
comes up, we need an explanation. Yeah.
So the state divvies up non-public school monies to each school district. So that's what we receive. Their
Talk to the mic, Denise.
Sorry.
Yeah, super close.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. So the state divvies up the non-public school funds to all the school districts, and we receive their allocations, and then they request spending through us. Non-public security is done through the Educational Services Commission. They administer those funds for us. So each non-public school within Highland Park receives an allocation, and they're able to spend those funds. They request purchases. This request is for 2 Ring doorbells. We're obligated to approve it on a board agenda, but that's just a pass-through funds. It's not our money. It comes from the state, their allocation, and then they request purchases off of their allocations.
It is confusing though. Every time we do this, somebody asks the question. I'm not sure that I can answer it. So anything else for finance? Okay.
All right, personnel and communications.
The Personnel and Communications Committee met last week on March 4th with Dr. Suska, myself, Marilyn, and Nikki. We went over the personnel agenda items, and then we also had an update on the principal search. Just a little kind of review of what we've gone through. The first round was that speed dating round. That was a new concept for us that went really, really well. The committee met with 9 candidates that the committee was parents, students, and also staff. The candidates especially loved the student room. And is it okay to share that one follow-up question they had? I thought that was really, the student follow-up question that they asked every candidate was, how would you explain a mirror to a blind person? I thought that was a really great great question to see how people responded to. Then from there, they narrowed that down to 6 candidates, and that went to the second round, which was a panel review. That was administrators and selected staff, and that was more of a question and answer style. The questions were targeted to specific scenarios that were just defined before the interview. And then the third round, which was just last week, was the performance task and presentation round. That committee was made up of admin, selected staff, and 1 member of the personnel committee. They met with 3 candidates just last week. And they were tasked with creating a spring faculty meeting with an agenda. We shared our school performance report with them, and they led the meeting and engaged the committee in a conversation about the data with an end goal for the following year, using data to inform goals. They only presented a 20-minute portion of that meeting, but gave the committee the entire agenda. And then they had specific scripted questions about special ed and differentiation. So we'll get an update on that at the next board meeting. And then the agenda items. So we will be voting on a resolution to accept the resignation of Ms. Sadolski, who's the supervisor of funded programs and district initiatives. Resolution to accept the resignation of June Miller, who is a special education teacher at the middle school. Resolution to approve the transfer of Joy Cheney to the middle school for the second half of the day, effective last week. A resolution to correct a new hire, Louisa Ashraf, who's a part-time counselor at Bartle. Resolution to approve a request from an employee to receive payment for each 8 days minus the cost of a substitute due to extenuating circumstances while on family medical leave. Resolution to correct Jamie Schomburt's contract to assist with Irving Primary School preschool registration. Resolution to accept the resignation of Kemboy Little from the head coach of boys track at the high school. Resolution to approve the following Schedule B positions at the high school: Tim Stark for the boys track coach and Benjamin Jacoby for head baseball at the middle school. So this is all at the middle school. Sorry, track was high school. Baseball was middle school. Okay, resolution to approve the following corrections for staff for the before and after school program. Title enrichment specialist at Bartle, Emily Santana. Enrichment specialist at Bartle, Marissa Chabelle. A student aide at Bartle, Larry Brooks. Student aide at Bartle, Quantree Sadler. Assistant site manager at Bartle, Tiara Moe. And assistant site manager at Irving, Priscilla Irizarry. Resolution to approve following staff for presenting professional development and preparing that for the PD Academy. That is Mix Perez for Canva for educators, and a resolution to approve extra duty positions for athletics. Angelo Bodian. I did have a question about this one as I'm going through it. Is this for all of the positions is for Angelo? Is that how that reads? Okay. He for scorekeeper, security, ticket taker for the head football, ticket taker, assistant football, ticket taker, basketball, and announcer. And finally, resolution to approve the following teachers to write health and driver's ed curriculum. And it's all of our PE teachers: David Luxembourg, Tracy Naden, Rich McGlynn, Aaron Washington, Colin Copperthwaite, and Jennifer Housewood. And that's it for personnel. Any questions for me?
I have a question. What the resolution 9, what does it mean to approve corrections? Is that like the change the wage or the hours or the title, or what does that mean exactly in this case?
In this case, it looks like it was an hourly rate correction. Could be hours or schedule.
How about the first 2? So it's just boosted from some number that we can't see. The enrichment specialist, what was corrected there?
I don't know the before.
Oh, but it is an increase in the wage is of some kind or other, probably, right?
We don't know what the correction is. Do we see the before on that? We're just
It was
accepting.
the wrong rate.
The wrong rate.
originally.
Okay, so the numbers 3, I see what he's asking is numbers 3 and 4 show the original rate crossed off.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, and the other ones don't show the original rate. So what were we correcting in those
No,
cases?
nothing was corrected on those. It was a whole, so,
No, yeah.
oh, no, oh. I got nothing. I got nothing. Thank you. My battery. Hello. You have a new battery? All right, I'll just use one of these. Sorry. God. Okay. We're having battery issues. No, so it was so it's the entire resolution is on there, but the correction are the things that are crossed out. So when we have a correction in a resolution, the whole resolution has to go on, and any corrections in the entire resolution, you'll see the corrections as a cross out. So the other things aren't adjustments, but the entire resolution has to go on there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Makes
So it's
sense.
the way the question's worded.
Yes.
It's approve the following resolution with corrections.
With corrections, correct. So it's the resolution and the corrections.
I see.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I'd like to say on behalf of the students in the speed dating student round that we all had a great time. We liked hearing the answers to that question, but we also thought it went really well and very eye-opening. So,
Right, thank you. All right, policy.
Policy committee also meets this week, so I have no report. The policies that are listed here for first reading, we have not yet gone over, but we will on when we meet on Wednesday, and so these will be reviewed before you vote on them for first reading. But most of these are regulations, and the only changes that when I skimmed them, I saw, just like Monique had said, changes to how we use pronouns, and changes so that you didn't have to list every specific group of people. It was more referring to the code for all of our variety of groups that are impacted by the regulation or the policy. So not a lot of change, but we'll review them and report more next time. And then the second read is what we discussed last month, or the first read, which was the religion in the schools. So that's it.
Okay. All right, we move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. We'll begin with anyone in the room. Okay, we will move on to our webinar attendees. How many people do we have? Do we have more than one attendee or one public comment? 40 participants. Wow. Great. One hand raised. Okay, Rob Scott.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
The mic did go down earlier in the meeting. Thank you for getting that back up. My name is Rob Scott. I'm a Highland Park resident and parent of one current Highland Park High School student. I live at 25 South 2nd Avenue in Highland Park. I actually have multiple comments that I'd like to make. In this first comment period, though, I will just address one topic at a time. I can raise my hand and get back into stack for the other items. As my understanding is, we are allowed to comment on multiple items. So in particular, I wanted to follow up on my comments from the last meeting, asking for the board to direct the superintendent to work on a plan to fix the Bartle start times so students don't have to be at school at 7:45 a.m., lose sleep, which is clearly the data is in increasing tardies. So my question is, has the superintendent been working on a plan? Do we have a report from the superintendent on this? And an update on the status of that. And just to say, I hope that we don't have delay. We all see Donald Trump delaying his rendezvous with justice through all kinds of tactics. Sometimes delay is as good as stopping. So I want to underline the urgency of action on this so that the situation can be addressed really before next year. So that's my public comment with respect to start times. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there anybody else on Zoom for public comment? Okay. Okay. Hold on, I have to find my place.
President's report, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, President's report.
Excuse me,
Uh,
sorry. In my prior public comment, I'd indicated that I had other comments. I presumed other people wanted to speak, but if no one else is willing to speak, I would like to have the opportunity to
Yes,
make.
that's fine. There, I think you had a minute and a half left on the
Okay,
3 minute.
So my understanding on reading the policy is that there are 30 minutes allotted for public comment, and that it is only if it appears that it's going to go over 30 minutes that the chair of the board restricts the amount of time. That was my reading of the policy earlier. Is that incorrect?
Yes, we usually stick to 3 minutes for the first session, and then we have unlimited public comment in the second session.
No, I think the policy says 30 minutes are allotted for the public comment in this session, 30 total, and that the restriction of the time is if it's going to go longer.
Okay, why don't you proceed with your comment then, Mr. Scott?
Sure, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So my second comment is very brief, but I'm concerned about policy number 9131 entitled civility, and I wanted to ask the board, in particular the policy committee, to review that policy. My concern is that the civility policy is being used to chilling effect to retaliate against parents who have strong opinions about, well, we all have strong opinions about the education of our children. And so I would like to see that policy studied and reviewed so that there is a way to ensure that there will be no overbroad interpretation of it and it won't be used against anyone who comes to express their opinions. For example, I could imagine a book burning controversy where this could be used against someone. And since apparently there was no one else who had their hand up, my third item is I wanted to ask that perhaps the minutes for the last meeting be amended. The descriptions of different public comments are extremely abbreviated and lack context. I know that takes some effort, but this is sort of the legal and public record. One possibility would be to simply add the timestamps of those public comments to the minutes themselves so that people could see what was said. So for instance, there is a point in the final public comment where Ms. Stern Cardinale is reported to have apologized to board chair Kazaldan. And I think that lacks some context that needs to be added. My own public comment, the way it's characterized in the agenda, is super, super brief, and I don't think has enough context, nor does it seem to indicate that my mic mysteriously went dead in the middle of the comment. So I think these are things to consider. And again, if you just added the timestamps, that would be useful. In conjunction with this, it's very hard to read the minutes, to parse the agenda, because it is posted as a PDF that is an image. If you would be willing to post a PDF that is text-based and searchable, you would be doing the public a huge favor in being able to be fully enfranchised in what's going on with the board. So that was my third item. Next, I'm a little bit frustrated with the webinar comment format. I understand this is a responsibility to the terrible incident that happened at the last meeting, but it is the residents and public of Highland Park that are being punished by this. We can't even see who else is in the meeting, which of our neighbors are. And I think that makes those of us who have to participate over Zoom on most occasions less of a participant in the meeting. So I would ask that there would be a reconsideration of that and consideration of an alternate way to keep order and civility in the meeting. If we keep going down this road, I fear it will just be used to make it so people can't comment. Next, I just wanted to comment on, I understand that instead of the start time being addressed and tardies being addressed in a way that gets at the cause, there appear to be policies in Bartle that are encouraging well, they're giving students perfect attendance awards. And I just have to say, the perfect attendance award is one of the most toxic cultural things in all of education. I'm a professor at Rutgers, and I need my students to not attend class if they are sick or otherwise having severe challenges. It does them no good to attend. And perfect attendance culture is really kind of an enemy of college preparation when it comes to that. So I would encourage that be reconsidered. Next, I just can't help but chime in on the AP courses. There was some really excellent comment from one of the high school students that I was sitting next to that really grew out of a very excellent exchange between Dr. Schoolman and Dr. Beatty. You could tell they disagreed a little bit, and I think that's incredibly healthy. And I would like to encourage the board in public meetings to show the places where they possibly disagree, because that can be very illuminating. And for those students who were sitting next to me, they became really engaged with that. And one of the things that was said was that the teacher and the counselor recommendations were very important, not from the gatekeeping perspective of don't do this, but from the encouraging the student to do it. And I think that's something that needs to be considered. I also feel compelled to just mention two issues that I don't think have been fully addressed with this discussion of creating greater inclusivity in AP courses. One of those is that one of the main ways you can increase the inclusivity of AP courses is to offer a greater breadth of them. So I'm concerned, for instance, that AP Music Theory might not be offered. And there is a danger if you continually just push AP Chemistry and AP Calc, that tends to exclude many students. The other issue is that for classes to be successful, class size really, really, really matters. It matters a lot. And I would hope that we could get some data reported in the public meetings on what the sizes are for AP courses, the number of students in them, right? And also a really articulation of what the ideal number of students is. I'm going to say right off the bat, from my experience teaching small seminars and labs, 16 or 17 is really a high top number. So I hope that will be considered by the board as they go down this important road. And finally, I wanted to also suggest that courses at MCC can fill an important role for students. There is the High School Scholars Program. I know at one time there was scholarship money available in the high school for students to take advantage of those. I helped raise it. I don't know if any of that is left, but I hope that's the kind of thing that students will be encouraged to do. It's a way to broaden the curriculum. And finally, I just wanted to say that I know negotiations with the union are coming up, and just as a parent and an educator, I just wanted to say I really do want to hear what the union requests are for conditions of work that will drive better pedagogy in our schools. For instance, things like class sizes and prep time and all of those things. So thank you very much for giving me this time. I think it was well under 30 minutes. And of course, I wouldn't dream of taking up so much time if it wasn't the case that it does not appear that anyone else wanted to make a comment. So thank you very much.
You are very welcome, Dr. Stock. All right. Did anybody happen to raise their hand in that? Okay. No, we're good. All right. President's report. So on March 4th, Ms. Stanio, Ms. Proust, Dr. Coleman, and I joined members of the central leadership team at the Labor Management Collaboratives workshop titled Growing Your Collaborative Practice. We engaged in sessions related to the facets of collaboration, effective communication, building trust, and sessions related to our roles within districts. Two reflections or two takeaways that we had was that we need to improve the visibility of the work of the central leadership team. So we spoke with Dr. Suska about creating a tab on the website, which would have kind of the purpose, what the team does and its members, and then also being more clear and really kind of presenting, I think, not just verbally, but also more visually, the work of the CLT in practice. So our next CLT meeting is in April, and we will get to practice at least the latter in terms of delivering a thorough report during one of our April meetings. And the website will be on the summer to-do list. We also had our meeting of the mayor with the mayor. Denise DeRosa made a wonderful presentation about district budget, kind of where it comes from. It's very complex. And we discussed with the mayor our particular budget needs. We asked the mayor for help with advocacy with transportation and also special education reform. And that concludes my report. Is there only any old business?
I actually wanted to, Dr. Suska had shared with us on our board notes about some successes in our school, and it follows up on what Andrew was talking about during his report. But I don't think you mentioned this one, the high school robotics team competed in their first tech challenge, and they were chosen to compete with the winning alliance. They moved on to the semifinals and the finals where we won. So now Highland Park Owls are going to the state competition. So I think we need to really commend our students for working so hard and our staff. They will be at the state's competition on March 17th in Hillsborough High School. So, and the other one that she had shared with us was our mock trial team, our high school mock trial team, defeated Somerset County champions and then the Monmouth County champions to advance to the regional finals for the first time in our school's history. So yeah, congratulations to them. We are in the top 6 out of more than 215 teams, and we're going to be competing for the state championship in the quarterfinal round on March 12th. So it's our teams, and you talked about the DECA. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening with our academic teams, and I'm happy about that. I'm proud of them. The other thing I wanted to say was to thank Dr. Suska and Mr. Rosa and our tech department for working on this, changing our format, something that's been on our radar for a while. We had purchased the equipment, and tonight's our first night. I hope it's working well out for the community. I heard we had some issue there, but hopefully over time we get the glitches worked out. It's what our borough council does, and we're following your lead on that one. Hopefully this works more smoothly in the future. So thank you for leading us on that. So that's all, just some comments.
Can I add one thing to that? I just also wanted to give a shout out to the Model UN team who flew back from Mexico today.
Oh.
I don't know details yet because I haven't seen my son. I'm here, but they won 23 awards, individual, group. I'm sure details will be available at the next meeting, but
I will be sure to report on that.
That's right. We're counting on you.
All right, any new business?
I wrote it down so I can keep my thoughts. Okay, so there's been a history, or at least a perception of a history, like a perception that the board doesn't hear the community. I don't know, my phone on.
You didn't try again.
Hello?
Oh, okay.
Much better. Not usually that quiet. Okay, so there has been a history, or at least a perception, that the Board of Ed doesn't hear the community. So regardless of whether that's true, there's definitely some kind of disconnect in communication and understanding the needs of our very diverse community as a whole. And to bridge that gap, I'd like to propose or suggest that we start a community advisory board. We have seen that when we engage with our community, we learn a lot about new ideas and struggles that affect most people that we otherwise would not have realized. I think that an advisory board would help give a voice to those who otherwise wouldn't have one. This board could be comprised of community leaders that folks would normally voice their concerns to, such as PTO presidents, clergy people, students from each school, including Bartle, like student council members, and other community organizations like the Teen Center directors or Pride Center directors, just to name a few. So I welcome any thoughts or any discussion on that.
I think actually, Dr. Suska, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did something like that when we were looking, or I think you guys were trying to explore things for after school for middle-aged students. Can you describe a little bit of what that work was?
using my mic.
Sorry, I'm down my mic, so thank you. Yeah, so many years ago, when I first started, there was a need for our students to engage in after-school activities beyond what the school district offers. We found that we don't have a local Boys and Girls Club of America, or really safe places for our students to go after school. And so I know that the borough has the Zone 6, which has been really helpful since then, but a bunch of community leaders, lots of people within the community, school community and local community came together to try to brainstorm ideas on ways that we could support the students just around the town to engage them in activities. Because we were finding that some of our students were engaging in behaviors after school that we didn't really condone and were problematic. And so we thought maybe connecting them to mentors, to activities, to community events would be really helpful. So we did something like that. Connecting to the food pantry, that actually was a good connection. We connected to the food pantry. We got our students opportunities for the backpack program, where we sent kids home. Well, the upper grades, we sent the kids home with backpacks full with food if we knew that they had food insecurities. Our lower kids was a little bit harder because it's a lot of non-perishable items and the weight of those backpacks are very heavy. So we found alternate ways to get food home to our students in need. So we really work collectively to solve some of those problems. So I think that could be something that with some new staff members and community leaders, we can definitely revive back to addressing concerns within the school community and community at large.
I'd like to add to that. Dr. Suska, when we had a student representative summer orientation, one of the things that you said was that we were the voice, me and Roy were the voice for the student body. Me and Roy have taken that very seriously in the sense of we have let our peers know what we do here and how we voice things that they may have as a concern to you as the board. And we have worked very hard to allow the students to come to us with anything. So just so that you guys know, I know, Ms. I know you brought this up, that if any concerns that are huge come from the student body, we as the high school, at least student representatives, will let you know.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Oh.
I was going to say one thing, Nikki, along those that route of just thinking about things that we can do. So when I went through my NJSBA training, we learned a lot about kind of best practices and what other towns do. And I think there are a couple really good opportunities to look to what other towns do and you know, evaluate what might be successful for us. So I think this is a really good moment, you know, to look more deeply into that.
Can I ask so Ms. Pixley, do you mean sort of like students or not students, community members sitting in committees, or what do you have in mind?
Well, I mean, so there's a couple of things that other towns do. So some towns do have community folks sitting in the subcommittees. Some towns have town halls that are really, really targeted around a specific topic. You know, it would be interesting to sit in on those and see how those go. And some have advisory council. So I think those, you know, I mean, each town is different and each town should really evaluate, you know, what the needs might be. But certainly worth a discussion, I think, at this point in time.
Yeah, and I would add to that we have done the town hall model for a couple of big topics. And one that's top of my mind is when we were looking at bringing in a school safety officer at the high school. And there was a lot of discussion around that in the community and folks, you know, falling on different sides of that topic. And so the town hall model was really helpful for bringing everyone together and feeling like their voices were heard in that process of making that decision at the district level. Similarly, when it has come to, for example, our work around discipline equity, we had a discipline study group comprised of parents, teachers, administrators, and students at elementary and middle and high school level in that group. And that, again, is a type of model that I think you're mentioning here, Nikki, and that is really making sure that we have the stakeholders represented when we're discussing topics that impact the community. And it's in those smaller settings and groups, it helps, I think, parents to feel empowered and comfortable and speaking. And think that we also were able to reach a more diverse representation of our parent body as well in those smaller groups. So I think diversifying how we do that and continuing to think about the bigger town halls, as well as having those smaller committees or subcommittees or strategic groups that are coalescing around a particular topic, are going to be ways to make sure that we're casting a wide net as well. So yeah, there's precedent for this, these kind of models that you're talking about.
Related, I was going to say, I guess it was about 5 years ago when we did the last strategic planning, they also had committees that included parents. I served on one of those. That was really helpful. Small room, I was in the superintendent's conference room. Wondering if is that possibly being planned for this round, since we haven't narrowed down to the goals at this point? Have you considered doing something? Great. Okay.
Dr. Suska said they do a similar model, just never mic. So I'm just gonna, they do use a similar model now that they've narrowed down goals in the strategic plan. Any other new business?
Yep. I like Ms. Danio's specific idea though of a standing community advisory committee. I think these ad hoc, committees on a particular issue that we've identified, or these town halls that happen once in a while, I think that's great. I think we should keep doing that. But I do think it's sort of like, standing outlet for community members to bring up issues that are important to them and, contribute directly to discussions would probably be helpful. I think that would maybe help. We do have a very diverse and outspoken people, group of people in this town. And I think if they had a way to speak their minds regularly, that would be helpful. And other new business, I also want to say I appreciate Mr. Scott's suggestions, and when people don't always agree, finding points of agreement is really important. And so I think on equity and excellence, we talked about the importance of pushing advanced learning opportunities down to Barlow Middle School, elevating the rigor across the curriculum. And at the high school level, I mean, more AP classes, more opportunities to take courses at community colleges, more honors classes, and that speak to kids with different learning styles and different interests, I think is just a great idea. And I'm upset at myself for not mentioning it more. So I think we can all get behind that. That's my guess.
One more thing, Allison. Do you think as part of the Personnel and Communications Committee, we could take on something like a PTO report, where if all the PTO presidents emailed me as chair, and then I could report out on what they wanted to share, similar to what Andrew does for the different schools? I wonder if I could do that from the parent-teacher perspective. And you don't have to answer me now, but just wondering if that's something.
We'll definitely talk about it more.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no more new business, I'm moved to our second public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved the right time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. Is there anybody for public comment in the room? Is there anybody for public comment on Zoom webinar? How many attendees do we have? Okay. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I just didn't hear anything of substance with respect to the issue that generated a great deal of public comment at the last meeting, which is the issue of the Bartle start time. So I just wanted to invite the board members to offer their own thoughts on the issue. I think the community would appreciate hearing something back. It's extremely frustrating to put an effort in to articulate a position, to note some empirical facts, to be concerned about your children, your neighbors, your community, and then really just not even get any sort of response.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Just to clarify, in the president's report, we did state that the central leadership team meeting is in April, where we will be reviewing the start times data and other points of data to look at the overall impact. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.